Hello, Kelly here with Kelly's Soroka Life, and today we have finally class 6 in lessons from Lenormand. So this is a long-term project that I have been working on, going through the Lenormand cards with the Essential Lenormand by Rana George, and going through the book and the card meanings and her cards and card meanings, and also the Wicked Tales Lenormand, and going through the cards and the guidebook with this deck. And so I wanted to have two, when I started this many months ago, I wanted to have another deck to go with Raina George's deck because hers is very particular to her book and her system and in her. And so I wanted to have another one that is, particular to another author and another creator. And I was going to do this Sweet Blossoms Lenormand, and I decided, but I got the Wicked Tales Lenormand in around, October, that time that I started these videos, and I thought it would be a really good or fun way to look at Raina George's more traditional look, and with the Wicked Tales Lenormand that has a little different spin to it. And I've been really enjoying working with those two decks together and learning about those decks, and just seeing how they compare to each other, going from Raina George's big book that has a lot of meanings in it to a smaller guidebook that has more just like very pithy and very to the point guides, definitions to the words and keywords and things like that. So it's very different, and I like that that contrast there of working those two together. So that's what I've been doing, and I will have the playlist. I have all of these videos so far in a playlist, and I believe in a classroom on YouTube so that you can find it. I'll put the link down below so that you can see all the videos and all the past videos if you're interested in doing a video and watching the videos and going through and learning about Lenormand, and just even if you don't have cards, you just want to listen and see if it's something that you're interested in, or you just want to learn about a divination system, it's really fun. And if you want to, hear about the book or the Wicked Tales of Lenormand, you can watch the videos, and so it's fun. And there's also, I do have a PDF guide that talks about the class and what I'm doing, and gives you some places to take notes if you want to go through the class and take notes as we go along. And the good thing about Lenormand is it's the 36 cards, and the standard Lenormand is 36 cards, and they have symbols, and they're very easy to make your own. You can just make your own deck and using the numbers and the symbols and things like that. So it's very easy if you just want to try out this system and see if you like it, and then you can do that. So let's go ahead, and I will get I have slides today. So let me share the slides here, and all right. So here, this again is class 6. And so we've done 1 through 5. And so far we have gone up through, we've done cards 1 through, so we're starting with 19 today. So we've gone with cards 1 through 18, 6 at a time. And so we did 1 through 6, and then 7 through 12, and then 13 through 18. And so today we're doing 19 through 24. And so and the numbers are important, because the numbers in Lenormand have to do with when you lay out a grand tableau, with where the houses are. And so the number 1 is the first house. So when you lay it out, you'll have that number 1 in that place, and the number 1 happens to be Rider. So that is the house of Rider. So then when you have that house and you lay out a grand tableau and you have a different card in that first house, it's very important to know that that's the first house and that's the house of Rider. And then, and they go along through. And so and that is one of the more complicated things, and it takes a little bit of practice to get through that. And I even now don't know all of the houses, and that was one of the reasons that I was doing this study, is so that I could really get into that grand tableau at the end, go through the book, read the book, and study the cards along the way, so that I get to know the card and the symbol and the numbers, and so that when I do lay out a grand tableau, then I can look at the cards and look at the houses and use the numbers. So get used to, that's why I've included the numbers as much as I can, so that you can see the numbers. Okay, so this, between class 5 and class 6, things have happened. And so class 5, we did the like I said, the child, fox, bear, stars, stork, and dog. So that was 13 through 18. So we're doing 19 through 24. Now, in each one, I have gone through Rana George's book and picked out a reading or type of reading or practice that you can do with the card. So we started out with just some combination drills, and then we moved to the answer line. And then last time in class 5, we did the box spread, which is the 9-card spread. And that, again, is one of my very favorite Lenormand spreads. So if you learn anything, go back and watch the box spread and do that one, because it's really fun. But today we're going to do Tower Garden, 19 Tower, 20 Garden, 21 Mountain, 22 Crossroads, 23 Mice, and 24 Heart. And then we're going to do the decision spread. Now, one of the things that I started out, and I have been and am still a tarot reader, tarot professional reader, and that is my first love. The tarot cards are definitely my first love. But the tarot cards are very different. They are much, they're more intuitive, they're more open-ended. They have a structure like Lenormand has, and they have keywords, and they have phrases and ways that they go together. But Lenormand is much more to the point. It's much more their keywords, and then you kind of move and put those keywords together to make a spread and to get your answer. And that is one of the things that I really like about it, because you can ask Lenormand very pointed questions, very questions that have to do with timing, questions that have to do with when something's going to happen or how something's going to happen. You can even, and we're going to get to one of the cards today that we can use to locate a lost item. You can ask questions, and with the decision spread that we're going to do, I have 2 examples. So you can ask it very just ordinary questions, or you can look at something that is a very big decision and get information from either one. So I'll show you how I've done it based on Rana George's decision spread. So that's what we're going to do today. And I have these slides in here, and this is just a review of the meanings. And this I got from the book, and there's many. So we're going to go through just kind of basic keywords for the 6 cards we're working with today. But they also can, have much deeper nuance and much deeper context when you get into the cards and working with them and reading with them. And so depending on the reading, depending on your querent, depending on the question, depending on the situation, then you want to look at these different ways, how the card can be read for the future, how it can be read for a man or a woman or both or neither, how it can be read for work, love, the relationships, any kind of love or relationships. And we're going to do the heart card today. So that'll be fun. Health, body, and spirit. So there's lots of cards here that have to do with, and if you read Rana George's book, she does go in for each card, go in and tell you the card and what body part or what kind of dis-ease might be associated with that card. So you can get that in there as well. Money, time or timing, advice or action, orientation, where something is, objects and areas. And so a lot of the cards have specific things that they stand for, and you'll see that. I've tried to include, one or two of those, especially when it's very specific things, and you'll see that today. And how they're different, and how one can mean this, but it's still a building, but it's in a different context, and so it's going to be a different object or area. She also includes in the book personal anecdotes. So she tells you about stories that she has encountered or ways that she has worked with this card. She goes to the traditional meanings, because there are different ways to read Lenormand. There's different systems that you can use, and they vary, just like tarot. There's lots of different ways of, there's tarot, and there's the Rider-Waite-Smith system, and there's the Marseille, and there's the Thoth. And so there's different ways to read Lenormand, but I'm going to stick with just the 36 cards of Lenormand in this video, in these videos. And then she also gives combinations and examples. And Monica Bodursky in the Wicked Tales Lenormand, and most guidebooks for Lenormand will have combinations as well and examples. And so there'll be, you'll have a card, and it will have, and the person will put the card with another one. So what happens with this card with a card in front of it? What happens with the card after it? And so you'll see that, and we're going to do some, and going back to the combination drills, you can see that if you go back to that video, you can see how that really works really well and is really fun. Now, probably the most exciting thing that's happened in between here, the last video and this video. Oh, and these are some important points that I like to review in each one that come from Rana George's book. That time, when you ask about time, Lenormand, you can definitely ask about time, but just remember that time, when you are getting a reading, the time might be malleable, and time from the viewpoint that you're receiving the information, the time might seem very different from the linear time that we often look at, because we often look at something, we want to know, is this going to happen in the next week, in the next month, in the next year? And, it might, but it also might be a cycle that we're looking at. So, look at that and keep that in mind. Now, the orientation with Lenormand cards, there's a positive, a negative, and a neutral. So all the cards are going to be positive, negative, and neutral, or neutral on the face. Now, some of them can move from positive to negative. Some of them can move from not negative to positive. Some of them are just neutral, and it really depends on all the other cards around them. And that's one of the things that I do love about Lenormand too, is because you can say, this is a positive card, and I want to know, this is positive, this is negative, and this is negative. So if I look at those three together, positive, negative, negative, that gives me a message. And if you have all neutral cards, that gives you a message. If you have all negative cards, that gives you a message. And then when you look at the grand tableau, you can look at, is there a negative card in a positive house? Is there a negative, are there, when you look at the person, the querent in the grand tableau, and a lot of times, it's me, because I'm reading about myself. So, I will make myself the woman, and we're going to do the man and woman card next week. or the next time, not next week, but the next class. But when you look at that and you look at where you are in the spread, are there lots of negative cards around you? Are there lots of positive cards? Are the negative cards behind you? Are they in front of you? Are they above you? And so that orientation of positive, negative, neutral, and where the cards are in the reading gives you a lot of information. And that's, again, it's just one of the things that I love to do with Lenormand readings, because you can look at those specific things and it will give you specific information. And then she also adds that personal anecdotes, the ones that she has in the book, that you gain them over time. And one of the ways to really gain your personal anecdotes over time is to record somehow your readings. I like to write mine down in a journal. You might want to take a picture and make some notes on digitally. You might want to do a voice recording, take a picture and then do a voice recording. And those are kind of fun too, just to kind of talk out the cards. And because sometimes you can get into a little bit more detail when you do that. And then she talks about the nuance of the cards. And so most of the cards will have one or two or four or five keywords that belong to that card. That this is what this card, these are the keywords. But then you can see the nuance. And I think she does a really good job in the book about going deeper and see how in these different contexts, those different contexts, like love and work and money, how they work there. Medical readings, like I said, there are cards in Lenormand that have to do with different body parts, different diseases diseases that you might experience. And you have to decide for yourself how comfortable you feel about doing medical readings and how much you want to include in a medical reading. And always, always, always refer to a professional, and no matter what. And then always make sure that you are comfortable in how much you say and how much you reveal and how much you read into the cards. And like the most important thing or most exciting thing is that in this last month or so, the new Rana George's new book has come out. And this is the second edition of the book that I have started using. So this is the Essential Lenormand by Rana George, and it is the second edition. And it is definitely much meatier than it was before. And I've just kind of jumped into this book with the cards that I'm going to go with you today. But already just, going through using the cards, those descriptions and those parts of the book, I've already seen, some of the things that are different. And as we go along, I'll mention things that I see, but I'm not really right now going to do an extended, this is what was in the last one, this is what is in the new one, unless, something that I see that I'm going to point out, but I'm not really going to go, bit by bit and do a comparison. So in this new edition, in her deck, and this is the Rana George Lenormand here that I've been using, and you'll see the pictures they'll be on the left side of the screen. And here, these are her cards. And so I used her cards. Now, a lot of Lenormand creators put extra cards with theirs beyond the 36, and they're all different, and they're all their personal cards that they want to include. A lot of decks now will have extra man and woman cards, and so there'll be man and woman, gentleman and lady, person A, person B, just different ways so that you can make different combinations of however you want to make the current card if you're using that. But then some decks have extra cards that the person has come up with on their own. And this is Raina George's, and she calls it, and you see it down here, the Murray system. And these are her personal cards. And so it's number 37. I don't know if you can see it, but number 37, which is spirit. Number 38, which is incense burner. Number 39, which is bed. And number 40, which is market. And they all have their own meanings, and they have their own ways that she uses them, and ways that she incorporates them in her readings. And that all of this is in the book. And I didn't really go into any of the specifics, because to me, these are extra cards that I don't use and I wouldn't use in a reading. I might use them, it's kind of fun to look at and maybe give a theme to the reading or something like that. But I wouldn't include them in a grand tableau, or I wouldn't shuffle them into the deck and use them in an answer line or something like that. And so she goes into the book and goes into the system and goes into the cards, and has separate sections for the cards, just like she has for cards 1 through 36. And so, but I thought it was just really interesting. And if you really like that and really like to find out about this and use a deck that has some extra cards in it, it's a great one to do. In the book, there are expanded reading techniques and spreads. And so I picked a few of the ones that are in the first edition. And those are the ones that we're doing today and in this series. And so if you want more reading techniques and spreads, the second edition is really good for that. And I've also noticed there is a whole section on mediumship. So using the Lenormand cards in mediumship. Now, I have not read that section yet, but I'm really anxious to read it, because I think it'll be really fun. So let's go on, and because that was a big introduction. And let's go on and do the cards. So like I said, we're doing cards 19 through 24. And we're going to start with card 19. And this is Tower. So you see Raina George's over here on the left with the tower, and then the Wicked Tales Lenormand over here on the right. And they're both lighthouses, but very different. And that's why I'm really enjoying using these two decks together, because they are very different. The symbols are the same, tower and tower, but the way that they're expressed are very different. And you can get, a lot of different nuance in the way that they're portrayed. So here the tower is, the keywords are shelter, or some of the keywords: shelter, protection, confinement, government, military, chains and branches. And so this is like a grocery store chain, and all of the stores that go with it, and anything that has that is franchises. So it would be something like Target and all the Target stores. And so all of those stores together. So not just a store, but all of them working together. A school system. So not just a particular school, but the whole school system. And then it can also mean ambition. So it can be something, that you're working towards, that you want to work up to, and make something that grows and that's protective. Now you will notice that even with this card that is neutral, there are things that seem positive and things that seem negative. And so it's encompassing, and that's why this book, I think, does such a great job with, is encompassing all the things that could go with the tower. And so when you get the tower in a reading, then it might be something that says it confinement, and it might be telling you that some kind of confinement is needed. Now, a lot of times we think of confinement and we think that, oh, well, we don't want to be confined because, that could be something bad, but sometimes we need confinement. I know that over this winter, it's been very cold and I've not wanted to go outside. And so confinement for me for these last this last month that it's been really cold, then that to me is something that is a positive thing. And so that's what you will get in this nuance here. And you see that this has to do with apartments and townhomes. So this can represent an apartment and move, maybe moving to an apartment or moving to a townhome or downsizing or moving somewhere that there are apartments and townhomes. It's not a house and it's not a neighborhood, but it's a place where there are lots of things kind of connected together. So lots of people living in a building, together. Like an apartment has lots of homes within a building, and townhomes a lot of times will have 3 or 4 townhouses within one building, and they'll be within several buildings together. So that the tower is representative of that. And so it's not the house that we did and number 4. What was house? I think house is number 4. Let me make sure. Yes, house number 4. So that you can go back and look at that. So that again, the nuance. House is very different than tower, which is apartments and townhomes. And then we're going to look at garden in a minute, which again is different. And so, there's lots of nuances there, and it's looking at that and seeing where that plays into it. So a tower is slow, something that's built slowly. It's neutral. It really depends on what's around it. And so if you had tower, just like confinement, if you had tower and maybe you had or you had tree behind it, which is tree. A lot of times we think of going outdoors. So if you have tree and then tower, you might have saying that, you need to, the nature is going to be rough. And so you need to stay in. But then if you have tower, and then if I had tower and then I had tree afterward, I would say, I've been in for a long time. Maybe it's time to go outside. Maybe it's time just to, put a warm coat on, put some gloves on and go outside. So, it definitely depends on what is around it. So this one can be 19 days or the 19th of the month. And then you see over here, in the Wicked Tales, Lenormand, the tower here is a haunted lighthouse. And so this is something that is there to be protective, but it's also haunted. And so it's how it's, does it really make you feel secure? Does it really, this power, this protection, this shelter that it's offering you, is it making you secure or is it making you insecure? And so again, you have that nuance there. And it has to do, a lot of this has to do with authority and authority figures. And because, the government, the military, the school system, they're authority figures in those places. And so it has to do, it can be very general about authority, but it can be very specifically. And so I put in there, how do you feel? And this, in the Wicked Tales, Lenormand, she has, so for tower, for example, for tower, she'll have the keywords, the top, and then the image, what's in this image, and the legend. Each card has a legend, and this is the legend of a haunted lighthouse that is in Toronto. And then she has a message, a shadow, and then reflection journal prompts. And I really like the reflection and journal prompts because it gets you to really look at this card and identify with it and see, what nuance you have with it. And then she'll have combinations with the tower. And so, like a lot of guidebooks like this size will have. So I included a reflection, and you'll see that on every card, and I just included one of them. So, how do you feel about authority figures in general? And this one was very important, and I really liked this one because when I was growing up, I had a really hard time with authority figures. I wanted to believe that the people who were in authority were there because they had authority, that they had earned it, and that they knew what they were doing, that they were the leader of a group because they had the group in mind. They were elected to whatever office because they were the best person for the job. And as I got older, I realized that a lot of times people in authority did not really deserve, in my opinion, deserve to be there. Or I would go to them as an authority figure and not be able to get an answer, not to be able to get in, or they didn't have they were there more for the power and not for helping other people. And so it was, not that everybody's like that. And a lot of people that I've met and come across and worked with have been, wonderful people and wonderful people in authority. And, especially as my children were growing up, and there were, people who were authority figures, are authority figures in their life that I did need to go to and ask and ask for help, and they were wonderful. But there were times when there weren't people, and it was really hard. That was a hard lesson for me to learn, and to learn to to question, and to if somebody for whatever reason couldn't give me the answer that I needed, or it felt like, or I felt like that they weren't doing the best for the group, then I would just have to find my own path. So, and it's hard, and you're an authority, and especially this day and age, looking at governments and school systems and things like that, when we see and the medical systems, when we see things like that are just seem so broken, this is that you figuring out your relationship to authority, is a really good place to be. Now, if you read tarot, you will know that there is a tower card in tarot, and the tower in Lenormand doesn't have anything to do with the tower in tarot. They are very different cards. And so just in that, one of the things that, because there are overlapping cards, there's a tower, star, and moon, and is that it? I think that's it. That overlap with the tarot, and because they have the same name doesn't mean that they share any of the same keywords or any of the same meanings. So just look out for that. But as you look for, as you work with these cards, they'll get their own nuance for you. All right, so that is 19, the tower. Now, number 20, this is garden. And again, this is a place like house. And like the tower that we just did. And so this is a very different place. So this is garden. The keywords, or some of the keywords, are public gatherings, being outdoors in nature, parties, specifically gatherings and things outdoors in nature, parties and celebrations. So anything, it could be your kid's third birthday party to, a celebration of, somebody's retirement, or, it can be something very small to something, very big. It can be somebody's, outdoor beach wedding, or it could be, somebody's very very formal church wedding. It can be in any kind of crowds, any kind like crowds at ball games, crowds at concerts, any things like that. It's also being in harmony. It's a very positive card, and you see it's a positive card. It can mean abundance or fertility, things growing and things, can. So if you are working with fertility in any way, this can be a card that can, help you out. It can also, it's come to mean social media. It's come to mean, those, because in social media, we have like Instagram, and then we have followers, and then you have Facebook friends, and then, the YouTube community. And so it's that gathering of people together, and public gatherings, private gatherings, outside, inside, those kinds of things. So it can be 20 days or the 20th of the month. And this one is neither fast nor slow. It's just there. It just is. And again, positive card. And it can mean here, we have house, which is, the individual house. And then we had tower, which is apartments, and townhomes, which is, several homes within a building and within a property. And then garden is more of a neighborhood, more of there's individual houses, but they're all have something in common. So they're all like gathered together. And so this garden, if you had a garden card, then if you looking at a neighborhood, maybe you are thinking about moving into a neighborhood. And so this might be a card that you might use. And if it comes up, then you would, see what is around it, and see, what messages you get from it. So that is garden. And now we have garden over here in the Wicked Tales of Lenormand. Now, this is a poisonous plant garden. And if you know anything about herbalism, you know that there are lots and lots of herbs that are poisonous, and then or plants and that are poisonous, and mushrooms and things like that are just poisonous. And there's lots of poisonous plants that have benefits if taken in the right way or used the right way. And if the berries are ripe, or if they're cooked, or if you use, if you eat the leaves, it's poisonous, but you can eat the berries. And they're poisonous to dogs, but not to cats, and things like that. And you can see this, I believe here is foxglove, and foxglove of course is poisonous, but it's also, there's digitalis, which is made from it, which is used to treat heart conditions, I believe. So, and all of this is just knowledge for you. None of it is, again, I am not a medical professional, but it is historical, and it is something that would have been very important in a community and long ago, in a community place where these plants might be needed for something specific. And so this is that community, people coming together, gathering together, and using herbalist knowledge, and using the knowledge of the outdoors, and for abundance, for fertility, for growth. And so this one is, I really like this one, because I am studying herbalism, and it's really fun to look at this, and to know that, things like everything, the garden is a positive card, but there can be negative nuances to the card. Maybe we get stuck in social media. Maybe we are we're in a toxic situation that we need to get out of. And so this kind of brings in that community herbalist knowledge, and that just community coming together and sharing the outdoors, or sharing abundance, and sharing parties and celebration. And so the reflection question here is, what is a happy moment you remember with family, friends, or coworkers? And so think back, what's something that that you had fun doing. Maybe it was something that was a garden celebration or outdoors or a party, or maybe it was you going on a walk by yourself in a garden, and that could be, or having a cup of tea by yourself. So that is number 20 and garden. All right, number 21, mountain. And this is, not surprisingly, the keywords here: immobility, resistance, a big obstacle, frustration, procrastination. And I am a master procrastinator. So this is a card that comes up for me a lot because, I am procrastinating on something and I just need to do it. It could be a faraway retreat. It could be, going to the mountains, or going to study yoga somewhere, or something that's far away. Because usually, we think of mountains in the distance, and a lot of times the mountains, like here, it's in the distance. It can be a block by an enemy. Someone doesn't want you to get to where you're going, or someone doesn't want you to get a raise, or get a prize, or whatever it is. It can be that block. It can also be delays, just normal delays. And and it happens. It happens to all of us. So this one, the key to mountain is that it's there. It is there, and it is in your way, and it's a big obstacle. You always have to remember that there is always a way around or through. So when the obstacle comes up, look at it. What is it that's the obstacle? Is it money? Is it time? Is it, investment? Is it partnerships? Is it being overcommitted? Is it, being undercommitted? What is it that is there, and how do we work through it? So it's slow because, it's a mountain, and it's negative because it's an obstacle, and it is, something that you do have to work on. But knowing that it's there, and knowing that there is a block, then you can use Lenormand, and that's what Lenormand is great at, to find the way around, or to find the way through. And I'm sorry, my dog's barking. So you can find, a way through, a way around. And so look for that. And what is it? It can be, hold on. Okay. All right. So, oops, I went ahead too far. So to finish up with mountain here, it can be 21 days, the 21st of the month, or winter, because a lot of times mountains have snow on the top. And so it can be something that is happening in the winter, or something that needs to wait till winter. So, and, again, it just depends on the cards around it. So here with the Wicked Tales of Lenormand, you see the mountains with Bigfoot down here at the bottom. He's got his mountains growing out of his head. And I like the fact that she uses Bigfoot and that legend for mountain, because a lot of times we feel isolation. And if that comes up, it a lot of times does mean that we're alone. And Bigfoot is often one of those legends that people, when they're alone in the mountains, that's when Bigfoot comes along, and they see Bigfoot, and they film them, or describe them, and nobody believes them. And so it can be that isolation, and it can be that can be one of the obstacles, or resistance that you're feeling. So so use that. And the reflection question: how do you feel about the mountains? And it can be physically, how do you feel about mountains? It can be metaphorically, how do you feel about mountains and obstacles and having to go up and down? And those kinds of things, and looking at procrastination, looking at frustration. How well do you deal with those kinds of things? So, how do you feel about the mountains? And I know personally, I grew up and I went to the beach. And that's, I grew up in North Carolina in the middle, beach on one side, mountains on the other. And so, but most of the time I went to the beach. But as I got older, I find myself really wanting to go to the mountains. So that's how, I kind of feel about it now. All right, number 22, Crossroads. This is one of my favorite cards, and I'm not sure why, but I think it's that having the choice, having some ways to go, having different options and weighing those options and making the choice. And so again, here, Crossroads, and you see the crossroads on this side with Rana George's deck, you see the roads here, and it can be any kind of crossroads. But it does mean options. And again, it can be physical roads. I mean, it can be the roads that, go in front of wherever you live or wherever you have to travel. It can be metaphorical roads that you're traveling, a path that you're on, and all of a sudden the path that you're on divides, and you're trying to decide which path you want, which choice you want to make. So it's choices, journeys, trips that you're taking. It can also mean multiples. So it can also mean more than one. So if you get crossroads and child, it can mean more than one child is involved. It can mean multiple, crossroads and house. Maybe you have multiple offers on a house that you're trying to sell, or you are going to have to make multiple offers on a house you're trying to buy. So it can be a lot of those things. It can also mean hesitation. It can mean that you're in a predicament and you are looking at, you're not sure where you want to go or how you want to make the decision. It can also mean infidelity. And this is one of those, cards that you have to look at very carefully, and you have to be, I feel like that you have to be very careful with, because, that is something that is very serious. And if you're looking at infidelity, you have to see how you feel about discussing that with another person. Now, lots of people want to have readings about their partner or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. And they want to know. That's a big question. Is he, she, they cheating on me? And that is a question that have to be you have to be that you have to be comfortable working with. And I like to, and when I personally do readings like this, and when that question comes up, I like to kind of like flip it around and say, well, let's look at the relationship, whatever the relationship is, let's look at that relationship first through that person who's asking you. What what is it that makes you think that? And let's look at them, maybe draw some cards about that. Or what what is it that what is it what is it that is making you feel like that? And is something making you insecure? And how is, what are things that maybe issues in the relationship that are coming up? And so that again is one of the things that is is very serious. And so and just like any kind of medical reading, anything like that is something that, to be very sure about, and be very sure about how you want to approach it in your readings. And, again, when this comes up, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person is cheating or the person's being cheated on or anything like that. But if there's a question about it and it comes up and maybe it is a relationship reading, then it might be that. It might be the person, is the relationship is just not what the other person wants it or thinks it's to be. And again, that's when you talk to your acquirent, you talk to the person, you talk to yourself if you're doing the reading for yourself. The number, and this comes up, the number 2 is important in some way because it's the 2 and the 2. So it could be the 22nd of the month, or it could be 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years. And this, again, is a neutral card. It's going to depend what goes around it. And it's going to be something that's fast. It's something that comes up and that you need to make a decision on. It's not something that you really ponder over. It's something that's coming up and then you need to make a decision so that you can move on. Now here, the legend in the Wicked Tales Lenormand, you see the devil in the middle, the devil in the crossroads. So this is the story of, and there's lots of different stories about the devil at the crossroads and people going to the crossroads and selling their soul to the devil to get something, to get fame. There's a famous musician who was reputed to have sold his soul to the devil to be a famous musician, and there's lots of stories about it. But it's also very in this is one of those places where I say this is a symbol. This crossroads is not only a physical crossroads that you can actually go to, but it's also symbolic. It's also symbolic of the choice that you're making, and really looking at the choice that you're making. Are you selling your soul in this particular place? Are you not choosing? Like the reflection question says, what is keeping you from choosing? So are you not choosing because you don't want to make that sacrifice or that commitment, or that it's not right, but you're being pressured? That it's not right, but you feel like that's what everybody expects you to do. And so this is, a really good one for that and to working with that. And so using that card, pulling some more cards around it to see what's going on there is very helpful. And again, I like this card and using it for choices because I'm an Aries sun, and most of the time I don't have any problem making decisions. I am just like, I with it as, and I see it and I do it and it's done. But then my Capricorn moon sometimes says, wait a minute, let's stop. Let's consider the options. Let's consider where we want to go, what we want to do. And so I will spend, hours scrubbing the internet trying to figure out, what kind of new blender to buy, or something like that, where that goes back to procrastination. And I said, I get that a lot, but it's just making that decision and looking at that crossroads and then pulling some cards and say, I'm having a really hard time making this decision. How can I use this crossroads energy? What do I need to know? Why am I procrastinating? Why am I not making this decision? What do I need to know about it? And Lenormand is excellent for that. And we're going to look at the decision spread in just a minute, which can help you even further. Okay, number 23. We're almost there. So number 23 is mice. And mice can mean infestation, sickness, restlessness, anxiety, teamwork, factory work, a lost item, something that's been stolen away and you're not sure where it is, stealing, you stealing, people stealing from you. And it can also mean something nagging, something's nagging at you, or somebody's is being a nag, or you're being a nag. And so mice, even though even though mice in themselves are kind of cute, and a lot of people have pet mice, there you do have to be very proactive with them. I will never forget when we lived on our farm and we had a feed in a horse feed. We would buy it by the 50-pound bags. So we would put the bags in a big, it was just a garbage can. It was like a metal garbage can. So it had a metal top that we could put down, and we could put, if we needed to make sure that it didn't get into, we could put like bungee cords on top of it, and it would hold the top down. And sometimes we would feel like that we would need to do that if things were creeping around, crawling around. And so we did that for a while, and before we got barn cats that took care of the mice. But I remember going out one day and opening up a bag of feed to put it in the big garbage bag, or the big garbage can, where we could hold it and then scoop out and put it in the feed buckets to take out. So I opened up this bag of feed, and I don't know whether it had gotten open accidentally or how, but when I opened up that bag of feed, there was a little mouse sitting on top of the feed, and it looked up at me with those cute little eyes, and it was like, "Thank you for the food." And I was like, "Oh, well, at first, I was shocked, and I was like, "Mouse," but then I was like, "Oh, you're so cute." But then, all the everything else kicked in of, this mice is going to be eating the food, and the feed it's going to get into, and if it realizes that there's lots of feed there, it's going to not only eat the feed, but it's going to process the food and leave droppings and things like that. And and they do, they can carry diseases, and they can carry things that you don't want to have in your barn, no matter how cute they are. And so that was one of those things that and I had to take care of it. I had to get rid of the mouse, because I knew that it was not a good thing. One cute little mouse could lead to lots of uh, problems later on. And that is, I think, the key to this card with the mice is down at the bottom. You see, take care of the little things before they get out of control. And there's so many things that just are it's subscriptions are a good example. We have now, everything is a subscription, and you sign up for a subscription and you forget that you're paying for it, or you pay for the year and it then automatically renews and you really didn't want it, or you're paying for it and you don't, it's on another credit card and you don't realize that you're paying for it, or and we don't, most people, and probably a lot of people, I know that my children, they all have bank accounts of their own, and I don't think any of them have ever seen a paper bank account. And so everything is on a phone and an app, and so we just lose track of it, and you don't realize that you're how much money you're spending until it really gets out of control. And that's what mice is symbolic of. And it's those things that are nagging, those things that are small but really need to be taken care of. And also it can just be anxiety. I know I get the mice card a lot. If I do like a box spread, I get the mice card in like the left hand side, because it's behind me, it's in the past. And anxiety is something that I have dealt with, and still kind of is a lot of times affects things that are going forward with. And so I have to look at that and know that it's there, and know that if it's something that I think this is really going to cause me anxiety, I need to take care of it. And I know that just like with the mouse in the barn, it was going to cause me anxiety at some point, and I needed to take care of it. So it is one that's fast, because it's that gnawing, that gnawing feeling. And so it's fast. It can be the 23rd of the month. It's negative, and take care of the little things before they get out of control. Now, this one, the Wicked Tales of Norman, I just thought was fascinating, because here is there's two mice, and I know it's really hard to see, but there's a mouse here that's gnawing on a bone, gnawing away, at a bone. And then there's another mouse here, this has gnawed away at its bone, but it has bat wings. And it's like, bat wings on a mouse. And I kind of read about it and realized that it was an energy vampire. That this was, mice, energy vampires are people that eat away at your energy, that they're really hard to be around, and they eat away at your energy. And unless you take care of it, then they just keep eating away at your energy. And a lot of times they don't even know that they're doing it. And sometimes we're doing it to other people and we don't really know it. But, I will never forget the first time that I was around somebody who truly, I believe, was an energy vampire. And she definitely was to me. And it was just so hard to be around this person. And eventually I just couldn't be around her anymore. And, and I've probably done the same thing to other people. But, it was this, and and there can, and I'm sure that we all know people like that. And just for some reason, that person, it just, sucks up your energy. And so you have to, you have to really do something about it. And so this was that reminder of what small worries, in the reflection question, what small worries eat away at your well-being. So what is it that's taking away your energy? What's nagging at you? What is really, making you restless enough that, that you feel bad, that it makes you just, physically sick. So that is mice. Lots of nuance with the mice card. And then finally, heart. This is 24 and heart. And we all, well, most of us, I think, love the heart. And because it's love, it's being in love. It's loving other people. It's being loved by other people. It's loving things and loving relationships with your family, with your kids, with your pets, with pastime, things that you do, hobbies, like I love tarot. And I I like working with this card because I believe that we use the word love, and we don't have different ways to show different kinds of love. We say, the love for our, like, romantic love for our partners, and we use the same word for it, just like I just said, I love tarot. And, I think that I love my husband differently than I love tarot. But, but I use the same word. And so I recently have really tried to qualify the word love, and qualify my emotions, make them, if I'm feeling love, what is it that I'm feeling? But with heart is love of all kinds. It's passion, it's devotion, affection. It's and you see on Rana George's deck, the heart symbol, and we use that heart symbol, so much. Heart symbol, and we have emojis, and we use heart symbols. There's a heart symbol right there that I did it on the Zoom. And we use it so much to express so many different things. So we use it as the symbol, and I believe that it's becoming something that is very deeply ingrained in us, and is archetypal energy here. And it's also our physical heart, and we have a physical heart that pumps our blood that we can't live without. We have to have in our heart, we have to have it there, and it has to do those things. But I think that scientists and and mindfulness teachers and people who are on holistic wellness, folks really are discovering that emotional scars can lead to physical scars, and physical scars can be the result of emotions, and not just things that not just cholesterol in your blood, but things that really affect you, and it can leave you with scars on your heart, metaphorically and physically. So it's both of those things. So it definitely takes into account both of those things. And it can also be kindness and gratification. It's fast. The heart is fast. It's the 24th of the month, or it can be spring or summer. It is definitely positive and affects, other cards around it positively. And it's love, but is not necessarily commitment. And I thought this was really interesting in Marina George's book. I think she says this, and she says that it is love, but getting the heart card doesn't necessarily mean that there's a commitment there. There can be the emotion there, but not the action. And we do ring, I think it's 25. Is it next? Yes. So ring is 25. So ring is commitment. So we'll look at those things and look at those different, look at ring and see that how it's different, and, the nuances there. So this, and again, you using it in a reading, you're going to see how it comes up, and you're going to see how it affects the other cards around it. So here we have, on one side, we have the symbol, and then we have the actual physical heart here. So we have a heart with the scars. And again, emotions felt physically and emotionally. And so a reflection, what is your favorite hobby or pastime? Because a lot of times we say that, just like I said, I love tarot. A lot of times we say, I used to love scrapbooking. And so, what is it that you love to do? And how can you express that in a different way? Or what do you love about it? What is it that makes you love it? All right, let's move on, because I know this is getting long, and I want to show you the decision spread. So this is the reading that is from Rana George's book, The Decision Spread, and how she explains how to do it. So here we have, you're trying to decide between two things, and you want to ask the question in positive language. And so you have an option A and you have an option B. So for option A, you put 3 cards face down here in a vertical line on the left. And then you kind of clear your mind and, ask question, what is option B? How will option B go? What do I need to know about it? And I personally shuffled again, because I was only using those first, 24 cards. So I shuffled them again. I normally don't shuffle if were doing something like this with the tarot. I would shuffle, put the 3 down, and then put the other 3 down. But here I just felt like that shuffling between it was a good thing, because we're looking at one option and getting the 3 cards, and then we're looking at another option and getting another 3 cards. So you do that. Option 1, and they're all face down to begin with. So all 1, 2, and 3 for option A, face down. 1, 2, and 3 for option B, face down. And then you'll turn over option A, card number 1, and option B, card number 1, at the same time. So you turn them over and you see what the cards are. And then you repeat for 2 and 3. For 2, return card 2, A and 2B over, and then 3A and 3B over. So then you have your line and you can see what the cards are. So here, the first thing you want to do is tally the positive, negative, and neutral on each option. So how many positives do you have? Is this positive, negative, or neutral? Positive, negative, or neutral? Positive, negative, or neutral? And, write it down, or, keep track of it some way. And she also has a very helpful appendix in the book. And I don't know if it's the same one in the older edition, but Appendix D in the book, she has a very concise but explanatory um, section on positive, negative, and neutral cards. So if you're not sure, you can look and see positive, negative, neutral cards. So you tally them up, and then you'll look at that and kind of get a general impression. And then you'll look at the three cards together. And I'll show you why this is so fascinating and why you should use it. So the day that I am filming this is the day before Valentine's Day. And my husband and I have spent many, many Valentine's Days together. So for us, it's it's not anything that is, I don't know, as important or as that we make such a big deal about anymore, because this is our 30 something, and Valentine's Day together. So we usually do, and up until, for many years, for when we were first married, it was just the two of us. And so when we were first married, Valentine's Day was, we did more and, went out and did things together. And then when we had kids, it was more, like a family thing. And sometimes we would go out, sometimes we'd get a babysitter and go out. But a lot of times it was a more family thing, and we would do something, fun together. And my oldest son's birthday is just a few days before Valentine's Day. So a lot of times we were doing something for his birthday. And so it just, Valentine's Day. And then when the kids got older and they moved out and they were doing their own things, we started doing more of our thing together. But neither of us are really like to go out and we're neither of us really extroverts. So going out and going out to a bar, going to have dinner, or going out for drinks, it's fun, but it's just not that what we enjoy doing anymore. And so but you need to shake things up. And I thought, when I was doing this, I was like, maybe we should. We'll probably just decide. When I was thinking about this, I was like, we'll probably just decide to stay home and, make a nice dinner and watch a good movie or play some games together or something like that. And because it's going to be just the two of us. And so I looked at that and I said, but maybe we should shake it up. Maybe we should do something. Maybe we should do something different, and maybe we should go out. And there's some new restaurants that have opened, and maybe we should try just get a reservation and go early or go late or go for lunch or something like that. So I asked the question. I said, so option A, the question is, should my husband and I go out on Valentine's Day or stay in? So that was my question. So my option A, I said we should go out. So when I pulled those cards for option A, these were my answers for option A, and whether we should go out. And then option B, I shuffled the cards and said, should we stay in? And option B, these were the cards I got. Now this is the deck here is the cute little Lenormand. And I used this one because I have the keywords on it. And it's very easy to see when you're doing a reading on, and when the picture is very small. So I looked at those things and I drew the cards, put them face down, and then I put them over. And then as soon as, and if you can imagine, so I uncovered these two first. I turned these over: mountain for going out, house for staying in. Mountain, a big obstacle, a delay; house, staying in. And so I almost just said, we need to stay in, because I thought, there's my answer. But I said, no, I need to look at the rest of them and see what they say. And so, and that's why I really liked going through the rest of the spread. And you can see how, if I were doing this for another person, how questions can come up and how you can have a dialogue. And you can look at it, and in the end, Raina George says, she says at the end of this decision spread, I thought I wrote it down. But she said that it's always, the decision spread, here it is a guide. So always read the cards, use it as a guide and advice, and then discuss it. And so if you're doing it for yourself, and I'll show you how I kind of discuss it with myself, but if you're doing this for somebody else, how it might not, there's probably going to be a clear answer. I mean, like here, I mean, I could look at mountain and house and say, well, that's a clear answer. If we try to go out, it's just not going to be fun. But I wanted to make sure, I wanted to look at the rest of it and see what came up with it. And so this is what that I came up with. But looking at it, discussing it, and it can also give you advice. If you look at it and you just want something to tell you yes or no, then you can look at it and say, well, I could look at this mountain and I look at house, and to me, going out is a no, staying is a yes. And so, there it is. And you can just say, that's it. But if you want a little bit more insight in it, and that's why, I like these 3 cards, reading them together. So then I turned over the next one, Scythe, and then Rider. And so Scythe, is cutting away something and letting go. So, that still does not, bode well for going out. And then Ship is traveling. And so that is like, well, maybe we just need to cut away some kind of obstacle that's keeping us in, and maybe that's telling us we need to go out. But then on the other side, we have House, and then Rider, which is movement, and your movement. And so that's kind of movement within that house. And so, staying here. And Birds is like, just having a nice conversation, staying home, doing, having the arrival of really good food. Maybe we order pizza or something like that. And then, have a nice chat. So looking at this, and so when I looked at this, option A, mountain is negative, Scythe is negative, and Ship is neutral. So even though Ship is down there, and you could have, I could have just said, maybe we just need to do something different, or to go somewhere different. Having those 2 negative cards on top was like, I don't think that it's really, that this is the weekend that we should try something new, or try to do something new. So then I looked at House, Rider, and Birds, and they're all neutral. So I was like, well, is that any better? Is that telling us that, telling me that, staying home is just going to be kind of meh? And, maybe we do need to go out, even though there might be a delay, or we might need, it might be, just something that we need to just kind of get through, and to have a good time. But if there were a positive card in option A, if it had ended with a positive card, I might have said that. But it ends with a negative, neutral card. And I was like, that's just not really, telling me anything. And, option B, they're all neutral. So I knew that staying home is going to be fine. And it's going to be, it's going to be something, it's going to be good, because we're going to be here. We can bring in and do the things that we want to do with the Rider. We can be the ones to make the decision, and we can have a nice discussion. We can communicate. We can talk about things. We can, turn off the TV and, do something fun together. Something, and so it, even though it was going to be neutral, and maybe that, and I think too, that kind of comes from the place of, we are in a very neutral place. We are in a very place where Valentine's Day is a more neutral time for us. It's not something that is when we first were married or first were dating, and it was just like, Valentine's Day, oh, this something. Or if it were something that I felt like that either of us had very strong feelings about, then maybe there was a restaurant, a new restaurant I really wanted to go to it. I really wanted to, go for Valentine's Day and go to this restaurant or something like that. Then I feel like that the cards would not have been, so neutral. But the two negative cards there on option A with the neutral card, just like, eh. But with the house, I mean, I love my house, and the rider there, I love horses, and the birds there, I love birds. So, I knew that even though these are neutral cards, that 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 it would be fine. And if there's something that I really wanted to do, all I needed to do was be the birds, is communicate it and say, let's try this. And as it turns out, we are going to stay home, and we are going to have, cook a nice dinner for ourselves, and do something fun at home. But we're also going to go out earlier in the day and do some other things with our kids. And so I think that's going to be, that's going to maybe be, the option A, going out, is going to be something different. And it's, but it's going to be something that'll be fun, but it's going to cut away, having to make reservations at a restaurant or having to wait in a line or something like that. And so, I think it's going to be fun. And again, that's how I talked to myself about it. And if I were, counseling somebody else and somebody asked me this question, then a lot of that would go into it. And I would say, what are you expecting? Do you want to go out? Is there something holding you back? Is there something, what is the decision between the two things? So that is the decision spread. And that's something very small. And that was, to me, it was very small. It was like, we go out, we stay in, but it was nice to know. And if I had gotten, positive cards with that option A, I would maybe say, well, maybe there's something we are missing. Maybe there's something that, we should be doing, or maybe there's something we're missing out on. And so, the cards will always tell you what you need to know and give you the information that you need. Okay, so you can use this for a bigger decision as well. And because it's not the yes or no, it's more decision spread, then it's giving you advice. It's giving you, what the energy is. And then you can look at it again, just like going out. I looked at it and I really did think about it. And I looked at the cards and considered what the cards were and made my decision there. So this one is a bigger one. So we live in a house in the city, and it's not a big city, but we live in the city, and it's very convenient. And we spent, before this, we've been here for almost 5 years, but before that, we lived way down the country on a farm. And so we moved to the city for many different reasons. And a lot of the reasons that we moved here, we don't really have anymore. We moved here because my daughter was still living with us, and she was going to school and working at the same time, and wanted to we wanted to have a place for her, to not have to find an apartment and rent and drive back and forth while she was doing both, going to school and getting a job. But then she finished school, she got a full-time job, and she moved into her own apartment. and my younger son was still living with us too, and he was ready to go to community college. And we knew that for him to go to community college, it was, like an hour or more drive every day. And if he were going to class every day, we would be going with him. And even if he were to be driving himself, it was, over an hour, to drive, just for that. And so for many reasons, we moved here so that my daughter could finish school and work at the same time. My younger son could go to community college, and now he's off at a 4-year. He transferred to a 4-year college and is living in his own apartment. And so it's just my husband and I, and we have, it's a big house for the two of us. And so we are now deciding what's next. We're looking at what we want to do. And it's kind of like this wide open space of, we really enjoy living in the country. Do we want to sell this house and move somewhere else, and move somewhere where we have a little bit, land again, and it's kind of outside the city? Or do we really want to be in a city again, or in a different city, but somewhere where it's very convenient, that we can walk, because we can walk to a lot of places here. We can walk. It's not a downtown environment where it's just all walking, but it is kind of a suburban environment where there's places. We have a library that we can walk to. We have a Target that we can walk to. We have lots of restaurants that we can walk to. We have a movie theater that we can walk to. It's not close. I mean, it's a mile or so, and but it's not like a downtown environment, but it is very convenient, considering when we lived on the farm, it was 15 minutes was the closest grocery store, and and that was the closest in a lot of anything. And so we know what that's like, and we know what, but at the same time, we had land, and we had deer, and we had fox, and we had chickens, and we had horses, and ducks, and all kinds of things. And it was beautiful, and we could see the mountains, and we could we had a big yard, and we had trees in the backyard, and we had trails down to a creek, and it was just a beautiful environment. And so, but now everything's very convenient too. We have things that, and we can go when we want to go to the mountains. We go to the park when we want to go, to see something in nature. We have a little park that we can walk to, and we have like 2 parks we can walk to. And so, but at the same time, it's very different. And so it's one of those things that I'm definitely considering what I like better. And I thought, well, this will be a good kind of big question. A big question of option A, should we live in the country again? Or option B, should we maybe even stay here in this city, or, just a city? And so I looked at those options, option A and option B. So option A, I asked, should we live in the country? What will that be like again? And option B, should we live in the city? And what will that be like to still, live in a city, or, even if it's not this city, another city. So option A, ship, clouds, and bouquet. So this was a neutral, a negative, and a positive, which, kind of fits. And so option A, I looked at that, and living in the country. There's lots of travel, because if you live in the country, there's lots of travel to things, because you're usually not near things. And the negative is there is a lot of unpredictability, and there's power outages and ice storms, and all kinds of things that we had. We had livestock that got loose, and we had uh, bull come into our yard. We had cows escape. We had a goat escape her yard, and not only did the goat come into our yard, but the guard dog. We had loose horses in our yard all the time. We had uh, power outages. We were on a well, and so we had, when the power went out, we didn't have any water, and we had animals that needed water. We had trees to fall. We had just lots of different things. So it's very unpredictable, but there's just this joy and this happiness with the bouquet that you just can't find in other places. You just can't find when you're in the city. And I could always see the stars. I could always see the moon. And here, I can't necessarily see the moon or the stars at some point. So, there's a lot of neutral, negative, and positive. I mean, it encompasses all of it. So then option B, I have the positive with the star, and then a negative snake and a negative whip. So looking at that, the whip, I think, is, there because this is where we are. And so if we move from here either to the same city or to somewhere, another city, we would know it. It would be the same thing again. And there's lots of difficulties with being in the city. We have we have things that happen, here. We've had, people run into our mailbox. We have people, we have theft around. We have things that we have to the places that we go, like the parks that we go to, are shared properties. Whereas when I was on the farm, you go down and it was land that was kind of isolated, and people weren't around. And we have people around here, and sometimes that's good and sometimes it's not good. There's traffic, and the snake can be that traffic, getting in traffic and the snarls of the traffic, and having to move around a city. But there's lots of positives with it, because you're near things and you have that convenience. And so it didn't surprise me that there was a good mix on both sides. And looking, because I was doing the reading for myself to get some just to get some insight for myself. Then you looking at that and looking at option A and living in the country, travel comes with a territory as well as unpredictability, but happiness in the end. So is the inconvenience worth it? And then option B, there's lots of positives, but then there's negatives and negatives. So there's that dream, of being near things, but then there's different difficulties, and it's something that we have done before, with the whip in the end. And so, like, is the convenience worth it? Is the convenience of, and some days, like when we had this snowstorm, and I thought, oh my goodness, if I had been out on the farm with the snowstorm, even though we had a generator, and we did have those things in place, I was like, everything would have been frozen. Everything would have been under 2 feet of snow, and it that is very inconvenient. And so it's clouds, and it gets cloudy in the country, but then here is having that disconnection from nature, and kind of having that having looking up and not being able to see the stars or the moon or things like that, or having concrete right outside the window, or people upset because you don't chop down all of your ivy in the yard, and so things like that. And so it's just there's good and bad, and I think that really reflects it. And it's something that definitely definitely will look at. And I think that there's clouds there too, and the clouds and the snake in the middle, because both of those are unpredictability and difficulties that that you're not seeing, things that the snake is things that are kind of hidden, hidden difficulties. And I think that came up because there are a lot of things that you know that we're considering at this point and considering in our next move, because we moved out to the farm. We were much younger, had kids, and in a much different place in life. If we moved back to the country now, we're much older and would be, in very no, we don't have kids. And so it's a very different, different time and place. And so the cards definitely reflect that. So when you do your option A and option B and look in the cards, it's going to be very personal to you, and you're going to look at those and get some good decisions. But I wanted to show you how the decision works, and how, kind of, if I were looking at this, if somebody came to me and asked me these questions, and these were the cards that came up, how to really discuss and how to use it as guidance and advice, and not a yes or no, because you can use it as a yes or no. And you can definitely, you could definitely look at these things and choose one and say, choose one card and say yes, one card and say no, something like that. So looking at this, but this goes into a little bit deeper, and it gives you that reading to look at, and it gives you that guidance. And I thought it was fascinating, just like all Lenormand readings. I thought it was fascinating, and it was so fun. And it can be very helpful, because it can be, this is something that, a lot of times we have decisions that are very stressful. And I know that I've had decisions before that have just been very stressful for me, and I've spent time worrying about it. And if I had the cards to be able to give me some guidance, to give me some a different outlook, then I think I would have maybe made different, well, I know I would have made different decisions. So that is it. And if you are still here, thank you so much. And if you're watching this in parts or pieces, and you've made it to the end eventually, that's great. Let me know, what you thought about these cards, and if you tried the decision spread and how it worked for you. I think that I might, pull some of these readings out, and do some readings, and maybe some times for lives that I can, we can work on these together. And maybe somebody has a question they want to work on. And so, but if you do have a question and you are trying to figure out something, and you do want to do a reading, please get in touch with me. There's ways that we can work together down below. And there's always ways that if you want to do just a decision spread and help me, and I can help you work through it, then, do email me, go to my website, chat with me. There's lots of ways to get in touch with me, and we can work through something like this together, because I know that it's really hard to make decisions sometimes, and the cards are there, and sometimes you just need somebody to bounce options off of. All right. So that was class 6. So for class 7, and I hopefully, and we'll get the next one out much sooner than this one. And I think so, things have kind of settled down. And so I'm hoping that I'll have more, time to devote to the lessons from Lenormand and get it out and get, to the end, so that we can, really work on the grand tableau, which is really fun. But for class 7, we're going to do, we have 12 cards to go. And so we have the next 6, which is number 25, ring, number 26, book, number 27, letter, number 28 man, number 29 woman, and number 30 lilies. And so these are some really fun cards. And we're also going to be doing the astrological spread. And this one is, oh, I say this about all of them, but this is so fun too. Even if you don't know anything about astrology, I'll walk you through it, and you can see how fun it is to do the astrological spread. And this one is this is page 393 to 399 in the new edition of the book. And so there is the astrological spread in the first edition. I'm not quite sure what page it is in, but you can find it. It's not hard to find if you have the old book. But if you don't have either book and you're just watching here, that's great too. I'll walk you through it, and it will be such fun. So that is the end. So let me stop sharing. So that is the end. That is a class 6 from Lessons from Lenormand, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you watched it all in one time, or if you just listened and followed along, maybe you're just listening to this in podcast style, that's great too. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you use Lenormand and how you use it, and if you're interested in, again, if you're interested in a reading and you want to do a reading, either a tarot reading or an astrology reading, I do that too. And so we can get together and do that. So, and don't forget, I will also add I'll add the playlist for the rest of the classes, and I'll also add the announcement video for the Broom and Moon Coven, which is coming up, and I'm going to be opening that in April. And so signups will be very soon. You can get more information. There's a video, there's a website, there's a PDF, there's an interest form that you can fill out and let me know that you're interested. And you can sign up for my email, and so that you get on and the updated lists. So all of that is here. Very exciting. And so I hope that you've made it to the end, and that you like and subscribe, and you're ready for the next videos when they come out. That's it. I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to go. So thank you for being here, and I will see you again in the next lessons from Lenormand.